You have to understand it in three perspectives. One, we have a moral obligation to encourage our best and brightest young black and black people to go to college. We have always been at the forefront of making sure that we're mentoring our young people and do everything else. But with the current administration the way that it is extremely important that historically black organizations, especially those Divine Nine organizations, really focus in on making sure that we are providing access to higher educational opportunities.
Why is it reparations on our national platform and something that we can get behind? Not HR 40, not a study of reparations, because as we can see, the government has money to give everybody.
Everybody.
Right? So I'm wondering why, and to be very honest and very clear, it's not just Alpha Phi Alpha. I don't think any of us have reparations on our national platforms. But I can only speak about Alpha because that's where my heart is. So I'm curious to know, why is that not a thing, and is it to become a thing?
Well, I wanted to kind of address, we talked about initiation and everything like that, but I wanted to address, I know that it was in the news lately about, hazing and the concerns around hazing and D9. Like, what are the steps that Alpha is doing to really address that, or even eliminate or deal with that? And do you think that the intake process has become too soft?
I think the issue is that we have allowed negative traumas in our experiences to translate into how we bring men in. What do I mean by that? We all suffer from generational traumas, right? And then we come into our organizations with these generational traumas, and then we try to pass those on through our processes, right? So first and foremost, we have to address the culture of hazing. Hazing is not a particular issue of one organization. It has historically been an American, not just an American, global issue, but really in America, it's been an issue from the early 1800s.
For over a century, Black Greek letter service organizations have built leaders, shaped movements, and strengthened the Black community. But today, they face real questions. Are they still relevant? Are they evolving or fading? And with recent headlines, including the tragic hazing death that has kind of shaken up people's lives, and it's time for a real conversation. It's, it's tradition empowering or endangering the next generation. As you know, we are the grit. No filter, no fear, just facts and fire. I'm your co-host, L. Michael Burt, over there with Dr. Abdullah. What's up, Doc?
How are you, sir? I'd like to say hello to everybody out there in the family. Special shout out to my brother, Mike Burt. Today, we'd like to welcome the 37th General President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I got that right?
Yes, sir. You got it right.
All right. He hails from the great state of New York and has a long history of doing the work of Alpha. Please welcome Brother Lucien Mettelus.
Yes.
Good.
All right.
How are you brothers doing today?
We're all right. Wait, listen. First of all, I like to be very transparent. My brother Mettelus did let me know about 3 hours earlier that he was under the weather. So we're going to do some rapid fire questions. He's going to talk. We're going to make sure his voice is strong as it can be, considering his circumstances, but he still honored his word and came on board. And we truly, truly appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so much.
And I appreciate y'all having me on. Trust
Thank
and
you.
believe.
All right, so listen, we're going to just dive right in so we can get in and get out. We want to talk about, and my stance on many things, if you ever saw my channel, is called All Things Educational Official. I'm giving educational news from a foundational Black American man's perspective. So most of my items, or if not all of them, are centered around the Black community and the upliftment. And that was the reason why I pledged Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And because of that, I have a lot of questions. I think if you really love something, you'll critique it, and you want the best answers so you can get the best solution. So I'm going to give my first question to you, good brother. Given the changing landscape of higher education and social organizations, what role do Black fraternities and sororities play in today's society?
So I think, well, first of all, once again, thank you for having me. But to answer your question directly, Doctor, you have to understand it in three perspectives. One, we have a moral obligation to encourage our best and brightest young black people to go to college. We haven't really we have always been at the forefront of making sure that we're mentoring our young people and do everything else. But with the current administration the way that it is extremely important that historically black organizations, especially those Divine Nine organizations, really focus in on making sure that we are providing access to higher educational opportunities. Second thing that we need to do is we need to build more infrastructure and institutions. I know that you
Mm,
know that from different perspectives that there are alpha chapters and other fraternities and sororities that actually own property where they're doing after school programs. The perfect
that's right.
example is the Epsilon Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha in Queens. They have a daycare center, right? And
Right.
so they're
Right.
helping. I mean, let's be clear, it's not the chapter itself, but a partnership with one of the chapter's organizational partners that they're doing that work to help develop our young people. Delta Sigma Theta has been doing things with all the time. So we have organizations like Kappa Alpha Psi, their Guide Right program. But what we need infrastructural organizational processes like houses, like learning centers, like schools, and those are the kinds of things that we need to invest in. Third thing that we need to invest in is we need to invest in black bank infrastructure. So what does that look like? What does that look like? So Alpha Phi Alpha has already invested 2.5 million in black owned banks, five black owned banks, a total of 2.5 million, $500,000 each to help grow the black wealth, right? And so for my perspective, and I want to just kind of give you that background, it's not just a one prong answer like, hey, we need to make sure that we mentor black boys so that they go to college. Yes, we have to do that, but we also have to create more infrastructures. We have to give back not only to HBCUs, but also colleges and universities actually promote opportunity for people that are disenfranchised. And we don't really see that nowadays. What we see is universities have become profit centers. And so we have to ask ourselves, even some HBCUs have become profit centers, let's be honest, right? And so we need to be more engaged and involved in one, providing economic access for our young people to get into college. That's why I talked about the black back depository programs. Two,
Okay.
making sure that we develop our young people from an early age. And that goes to go to high school, go to college. We're in Alpha Phi Alpha as general president. What we're trying to do is not only focus on the high school component of it, but actually look at the grade school component of it. Most young people
Okay.
learn
Yeah.
their educational behaviors between kindergarten and third grade, and then they kind
Yeah.
of move forward from there. From so if we get involved in kindergarten through third grade, make sure we're mentoring them all the way. And most importantly, when they get into college, make sure they graduate from college. The retention rate of our people in college is
Mhm.
at a higher rate, and so that means more people drop out of college than our white counterparts. Why is that? Partly economic access, partly standardized testing and some inherent biases in that you receive. So when you go to college, you may not get a 1600 or 1500 on your SAT. Doesn't mean that you're not intelligent, but because you didn't get that 1500, you're automatically assumed that you're not capable of doing the coursework. And so those infrastructures and institutions start pushing against you. So we need to be the counter narrative to those institutions. So in summary, I think I explained in summary, but let me go back and summarize it again. Focus on K all the way through college is the first part as black organizations and really focusing on the disenfranchised. Two, building up black economic wealth through black bank depositories. And three, really investing in building of property. And it's not only enough to mentor our young people or take care of our our aged citizens like Alpha Phi Alpha, Zeta Zeta Lambda, and the chapters in Chicago do. We take care of our aged communities, but the reality is that what are we doing to make sure that we own property and provide infrastructure? Because it's one thing to say we're going to do the mentoring program at the school every week. It's another thing to say we're going to do it at the Omega Psi Phi building or the Iota Phi Theta building. Those kinds of things have real impact.
Okay, all right. I like something you said in regards to the mentorship program because my wife and my mother are both Zetas, and I am very envious of the way they lay out their mentorship. Their mentorship starts at the age of 4 and
Right.
goes all the way to 18. And they have this, like the saying that they had to call girls to pearls, where their recruitment efforts are never really on the college campuses. They're literally sending girls to college
Right.
with the idea of becoming members of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And I think that is amazing, so much so that I did create a program. We discussed that I believe Alpha would benefit from, but I think that mentorship should begin in kindergarten, just be exposing young black men in particular to our organization and its concept so that by the time they are ready to go away to school, if they choose to do that, they would already have in their minds that that is the way to accentuate any intellect or any plans that they have for the future. But that's just a thought. I just want to say I really appreciate that you give that answer. Mike, where are you at, Mike?
Well, no, I liked everything he said. How do you implement those ideals into basically black community?
So for each one, it's a different path, right? So each is not the same path. So for the first one, for the mentoring component, we have to actually train our members to be mentors and understand the dynamics of each age group. The way that a kindergartner reacts to things is not the way the middle school reacts to things, is not the way that a high schooler
Right.
reacts to things, and not the way the college reacts to things. We may have to do a graduated mentoring program where you train certain groups of people or certain mentors, I'm sorry, certain mentors to be specific in an age group because that's who they best work with. And then when you graduate to that next level, you may get a new mentor. It doesn't mean you have to disconnect that mentor that you had before, but also understand that you're now entering a new stage of life. There was a time that our people actually took the seriousness of adulting as part of a ritualistic process that you we need to make sure that we're providing that access. So from there and training and background checks are very important because we just can't hand our children over to anybody. And I don't care if it's your children in blood or just a child that you just met across the street. I'm an advocate for all children because we want to make sure that we're building the best society, and that depends on our children. So I'm invested in that. The second thing that we want to do when we talked about the Black Depository component of it is that we need to not only support the current Black institutions that are in place, but look at other economic opportunities. Now, the simplest solution that most people like to say is let's build a credit union. Well, that's good, but let's talk about what are you doing on a college campus in terms of your legacy, right? What's your endowment look like at that university? What does your endowment look like? What are your shares of equity in companies that we have self-interest in, right? So if we are as a group of Black organizations, we can talk about banking, and that's extremely important. We need to start spending and investing in Black banks and Black depositories and credit unions created by us. But ultimately, our economic power lies in economic leverage on the universities that we're at. So I'm going to give a big example. UCLA, right? UCLA has a large endowment. If Alpha Phi Alpha or Delta Sigma Theta or Sigma Gamma Rho starts an endowment and raises 200, 250,000, 300,000, half a million, up to $1 million, that changes UCLA's perspective about Black Greek life on that campus, right? It doesn't necessarily become, hey, they're just Black Greeks. They help with our diversity movements. They help with our community service hours. No, they actually have an impact. They have these endowments, and we target those endowments to say, hey, anything that comes out of that endowment goes directly to people in need that either are us or in need or align with our beliefs and things that we'd want to do for the community. So that's how you create financial power. Like I said, investing in buying and building businesses that we own. And that doesn't necessarily even mean being an entrepreneur. I think sometimes we give the false impression that all of us need to be entrepreneurs. That's not the
Well,
case at
yeah,
all.
not everybody wants to be one.
Not everybody's built for that. You're right.
And
You're
that,
right on that.
right,
Not everybody's
right.
built to be a business owner.
But all of us can invest in some form or fashion, right?
Yeah.
And we need to
Yeah.
be strategic in investing. Does that mean all of us are going to buy property and stock? No, but that means that we need to be intentional about the communities that we buy and purchase from. Pardon me. So those are the kinds of things that we need to do from the economic side, not from a planning side. I think we missed, and it wasn't intentional. I just think that the nature of the world was at that time. It wasn't something that was at the forefront. We missed a grand opportunity to acquire property during the pandemic as a community,
Yes, we
right?
did.
And,
We blew
and
that. We blew that
right.
one. We
Right,
blew it.
and I'm not necessarily saying that was at the forefront because we were in the middle of a crisis pandemic and didn't know what was going to happen within the next week or so, right? But we need to start looking at when opportunities present themselves, when a university closes down, we should be looking at that as a community and saying, hey, Can the Urban League buy that? I'm not putting the Urban League on the market. I'm just saying, can the Urban League buy that? Can the
Right.
NAACP buy that? Can Alpha Phi Alpha buy that? And those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for terms of infrastructure when opportunities arise. Because sometimes we think of acquisition of just this building. I'm thinking about what if we acquire university property that's no longer in use, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
what if we buy a high school that's no longer in use?
That's right.
Those are real opportunities that we have more flexibility to do things. Yes, we can convert it into living spaces, but we also can convert it into a community center. We can convert it into a health facility. We can convert it into different things where we can provide direct access to the communities that we're in. So what I'll say is that we need to stop thinking of um, the individual process, but think of it as a center of excellence for the greater community. So if
Okay. All right.
we know that our communities, and I always talk about that centers of excellence, so that
Mhm.
when we go to our communities, we know exactly what we need to do.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you touched on that issue about financing because I think that's very important. And I want to get to this real quick. Alpha Phi Alpha was founded by Black American freedmen. That's
Hmm.
no question about that. That's who we're founded by, and they have a long our fraternal history is long for advocating social justice, and economic empowerment is something that we never really discuss, like you just brought up. Like you said, just talking about a credit union, that sounds good, but what are we going to do with the funding? Where other sources of revenue are we talking about? But here's my question. Because reparations for freedmen is a really hot topic now. It's
Hmm.
been a topic. I'm a reparationist. I always talk about reparations for freedmen. Why is it that our organization, being over 100 years of age and having been founded by freedmen,
Hmm.
that dealt with the slings and arrows of the legacy of chattel slavery in America.
Hmm.
Why is it reparations on our national platform and something that we can get behind? Not HR 40, not a study of reparations, because
Hmm.
as we can see, the government has money to give everybody,
Everybody.
right? So I'm wondering why, and to be very honest and very clear, it's not just Alpha Phi Alpha. I don't think any of us have reparations on our national platforms. But I can only speak about Alpha because that's where my heart is. So I'm curious to know, why is that not a thing, and is it to become a thing?
So two parts to that. Why it is not a thing, I would say, is because we've kind of as a community, we've fallen into the 40 acres and a mule trap that we'll never get our 40 acres and a mule, right? So
Mm.
from our mentality, we've always kind of disqualified it because we never thought we would get it because we haven't demanded it,
Hmm.
right? So from our perspective, we've been kind of like, oh, okay, this is a thing that was promised to us, but we'll never get it, so therefore we're not going to prioritize it. So first we need to switch the mentality as, and I don't want to say owed because then it makes it sound like a handout, but this is something that the African in America earned through cattle
Well,
slavery.
let me pull. Whoa, got to pull that back. Being is
Mhm.
saying that it's old, it's a debt. It's not a handout.
Correct.
It's a
It's not a
debt.
handout.
Now, if
Right.
somebody
Well,
translates owed as a handout, then that's on them. But it's lineage based. It's not race
mhm.
based. It's lineage
Correct.
based.
Correct.
And if you can trace yourselves back on the census to chattel slavery in North America, then you're owed this debt, right? And um, I understand. I agree with you 100% when you say that we have to shift the mentality. But I always was under the impression before I became a member, and that's why I became a member, is that as members of Alpha, that's our job to
And I
lead the
don't,
charge.
and I want to be clear. I think it's the way that the word is used from my perspective, but I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, right? So when I hear people say the word, oh, there's this sense of entitlement that people generally try to attach to it, and I want to be careful how that's presented because it is to me it is a right, not is
Mhm.
what that is something that should have been given to the African in America a long time ago, right? So that is a right, not necessary. And you're right, it is a debt that's unpaid. So it's need to change the mentality. The second part, and we can kind of dive into this a little bit. The second part of that is the World Policy Council, which is an arm of Alpha Phi Alpha, has talked about reparations, and they continue to address that as an issue. What I would offer, and just from a high level perspective, I'm not saying that this will happen overnight. What I'll offer is that it's actually part of something that I don't want to say we're studying because that would be the wrong word, but we're looking into what is our policy position on this particular issue, and that's what the World Policy Council, part of their initiatives are, part of their discussion points are that we'll bring to the General Convention over the next year and a half. So you'll see that. But first and foremost, whatever we decide, we have to first change the mentality, right? Because I think a lot of people hear reparations and they have this thing in their head that, oh, it's just this and that. What is truly, we are the only disenfranchised group politically. I want to be very clear. Group politically mean that there was an intentional move by the United States government to disenfranchise a group of people that has not received reparations.
That's
right.
Right.
I'm not talking about systematic. Systematic's a little bit different, right?
A little different,
But I'm talking
yeah.
about as a group of people that actually focused in on this, right? I think that that's where we are as a people. Does that make sense?
All right. Oh, that makes sense. It makes sense. Okay, good. Mike, where you at, brother?
No, I want to see it happen first of all, and
Right.
so
Right.
I mean, to see that happen would really change the face of America. You know, just the belief by itself that
Right.
we are not necessarily old, but it should be given because of chattel slavery. Where do you see Alpha Phi Alpha going as far as leading in the society right now?
So, so being the organization of the intellectual, that is Alpha Phi Alpha, right? It is our accountability and responsibility to make sure that we are at the forefront, pardon me, of political issues, but policies as well. So what does that mean? That means that we are going to train the membership. We are opening the Andrew Young Policy Institute as a fraternity to train Black and brown men to make sure that they are the leaders in our communities in dealing with policy and political issues. I always say policy first because politics is a separate thing. Policies are the things that are affecting us day to day. Those are the things that we need to be training the next set of leaders from in Alpha Phi Alpha. I've always said this and I will continue to say this. Alpha Phi Alpha will not solve all the world's problems. But if there's a problem to be solved, you can find an alpha man in the midst, right? And so we need to be training solution-oriented brothers. That doesn't necessarily mean that Alpha Phi Alpha is going to take on the war in the Middle East, right? But what does that mean is if there's a brother that has concerns about things that are going on in Israel, he should be trained and ready to enter into that space as a policy and professional expert to deal with that issue. That is where Alpha Phi Alpha is. Will Alpha Phi Alpha deal with issues? Absolutely. And we'll address them as a whole. But if there's a problem in this world, there's not a reason that an alpha man does not have the skill set, understanding, and ability through the Andrew Young Institute, Brother Andrew Young Institute, to help deal with that issue.
Okay.
All right. Listen, it's so funny. I always Google people. When I Googled you, brother, I saw you in the Haitian Times. Did you see that article?
Yes, I did. Yes, my mom saw it too. My mom saw it too.
It's like that. The Haitian Times. What the heck? So let me ask you a question, because we understand that culturally we are different. We have different cultural understandings. Haitians and Black Americans. We do things differently in different areas. But my question is this. How does your heritage influence your vision on anti-Black racism and white supremacy as it may differ from Black Americans?
So that's a great question. And the reason I always say this, because I was born in America, grew up here. I don't have the historical genealogy of slavery in America. I have the genealogical slavery of Haitian people from when we were the first Black independent country in the globe. But then
In the Western Hemisphere, 1804.
well, that's in hemisphere. But when you think about it, what happened almost immediately after that? We became systematically oppressed by the United States and France, right? And that systematic oppression helps also with my experience as being a United States citizen, because regardless of and I hate when I hear our people talk like this, regardless of where you come from, in this country, you are identified as black first, right? They don't see whether you're from Nigeria, Haiti, Jamaica, Guyana. They just see that you're black, right? And so therefore there comes a set of institutional issues that come with that. So how does that shape my perspective? One, it makes me a little bit more radical in the way that I see the world. I believe that our people are not our people. And when I talk about our people, I'm talking about a global perspective, not just a United States perspective. I believe that our people should be at the forefront of leadership because that's historically where we've always been and where we need to be. So we should be training the best and the brightest of our people to become the leaders in the societies that we're in. Two,
Okay. All right.
it does not, and I'm a little bit, pie in the sky. I read a lot of comic books. That's just
All
who
right.
I am. I'm a big sci-fi guy. There's no reason. The only reason that we haven't had a real Wakanda for us as a people is because of those systematic oppositions that have been placed in our way. It is my belief as General President that I hope that I can help knock some of those walls down and move us forward to a more I want to say a Wakanda-like environment, but that's what I'm thinking, right? For our people, regardless of where they're from. And thirdly, I don't think of Alpha Alpha, even though it was founded in the United States, we're an international organization. And we need to understand that wherever our people are oppressed, whether it was in South Africa during the apartheid, because Alpha Phi Alpha was a big antagonist against apartheid, right? Whether it's in the Caribbean, where there are many islands that are disenfranchised by the Euro economic systems, right? Whether it's the war in Somalia, wherever our people are in trouble, we should be in a global perspective trying to address it. Now, does the African in America have their own issues? Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to fight against systematic oppression, governmental and institutional racism, different things of that nature. And historically, we have never, I don't want to say the word, I think we haven't been, not, and the word is not accepted, it's going to come to me in a few, but we've never been recognized for our role in this society of America. The African and American, historically, has been the moral conscience of this country. And any great movement that's taken place is because of what we've done in this country. And so it is my responsibility as General President to make sure that we hold this country accountable to the moral obligation that it has to each and every person. And so therefore that is my push. That is what I am going to always do and believe in.
I would like to say, I'm going to push back a little bit because what I found to be just over my 34 years in the fraternity, I've looked and I've watched and I've been a part of a lot of different movements, writing campaigns, marching, speaking to politicians, trying to build institutions on campus. My issue is that Alpha Phi Alpha seems to be pushing a very hardcore Pan-Africanist ideology, but leaving the freedmen that founded the organization and made the organization what it is today, leaving them behind, no longer addressing those issues. And I want to bring that back to your original point when you spoke on how we were instrumental in that, and in the antagonizing of the apartheid government in South Africa. I don't remember in my tenure as an Alpha, I'll say that level of involvement towards black movement outside of when there was a calamity, a death, a wrongful death. I don't see us putting forth that same level of energy that we put forth towards the abolishment of apartheid, or when you start talking about things going on in Somalia, or we talking about the support of any African leader or Caribbean leader. I think that one of my biggest issues and concerns is that we're not putting forth the level of energy that we need to move Black Americans forward as the crux of America. We built this thing for free.
Right.
We are the greatest innovators. We're the most copied culture on the planet. And that leads me to my next question. Some critics argue that Black fraternities and sororities have not done enough to uplift Black communities beyond their members. How would you respond to that critique?
I would disagree with that.
Okay, I just wanted to know, how would you respond to that critique, and what would you tell them?
That particular critique, because we talked about the Epsilon Pi Omega daycare. Those are not AKAs that are benefiting from that. We've talked about the Zeta Zeta Lambda Senior Center. Those are not members of the fraternity in general that are benefiting from that. Those are people in the community. When we do scholarships and we give out programs, when we mentor youth, ultimately the benefit could be they could become members, but that's not guaranteed. We are still giving back in the community. Now, if the question is, could we be doing more? Absolutely. Have we done enough? I would never say we've done enough. That would be disingenuous, right? But to say that we're only self-interested would be completely inaccurate. And I would push back at anybody that would say that. Now, when we talk about the future of the organization, I think that part of that, and we talk about the apathy and everything else like that, part of that is beyond the organization, and I'm not making an excuse for the organizations, but one of the most interesting things that I've seen is that as the African in America has risen in the middle class, our apathy has increased. Right?
Okay.
So I'm not blaming our economic ascent to it. I'm saying it's a big contributor to it, right? So there was, just being honest, there was a time that we as a people, if brother Abdullah came into my community, he was part of the community. The black community this was us. This is what we had, a home. We worked together. If you had a car, right, and I needed you to pick up my children, there was no question, right? There was no question.
It's more community oriented.
More community oriented. As we become moved up in the middle class, we become more individualistic, right? I'll give you a perfect example. In those days when we sent our young kids to certain organizations, it was for their personal and professional development, right? So those associations was for the betterment of the community. Some people have taken those organizations and used it as an individual tool to help get their particular child, instead of all the children involved moved up in that community structure, right? So I believe that the middle class, and that's why I'm saying I can't necessarily blame fraternities and sororities. I think that as we have increased, we've become less considerate of the community and more considerate of the individual. And so
I agree.
So we need to kind of, and that's not necessarily an Alpha Phi Alpha or any organization problem.
I think it's across the board.
Right. And I think that in order to address that, we have to, and it's going to take work. We have to get a generation on board to understand that we're in this together. It's, just because I graduate from college, but don't give anything back to the community, doesn't mean that I'm successful, right? What's the measures of success now? You have a 6-figure salary, you have this kind of car. I believe the measure of success is, what have you done for the people in your community? What have you done for people that can't do anything for you, right? What have you done to help move an agenda forward that helps and promotes everything else? Give you a perfect example. And I'll kind of paraphrase it because I don't want to make it a long story.
Right. I got
you. My son is an athlete. There was a team tryout and something, right? They were passing out flyers, right, to come to the tryout. He didn't get one. Just never got the flyer, right? He said he wasn't bothered by it, right? I wasn't bothered by it either. Came to find out that the person that was handing out flyers was handing them out to particular people, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I got upset. It wasn't that he didn't get the flyer. It was because there was a community of children that were being denied.
And it was intentional.
Right? Right. So when I sent the communication to the school, I made it very clear. This isn't about my son because he didn't have the time to play this other sport because he had his own sport to play. But it's about all the other kids that need an advocate.
Right.
Right? And so who's advocating for our kids nowadays? I would argue
nobody.
Not many.
Yeah, I would say it's very circumstantial, brother. As being an educator, I can tell you, it's extremely circumstantial.
But I bet you if that parent was directly affected by their kid, then they would make it an issue.
Yeah. They would be willing
right?
to invest.
Right.
Be
But
willing
if
to invest.
but
Right.
my question is, are we investing in all our children?
That's true. That's true. Okay. All right. Mike, can I jump in on this one question real quick? If
Yeah,
you don't
go
mind.
ahead. I want to talk
Here's
about
what
something
you
different
brought
anyway.
up financial, and I think whenever you talk about the black community, you always got to go back to finance because it stifles us sometimes, and then sometimes it uplifts us depending on individuals or institutions. So here's my question: I know when I came in the organization in '91, the cost of joining was $250.
That's where I
And
was going. I was going there.
it was a $50 house building fund, which they change over to house restoration fund. That's for time for another argument and discussion. But ultimately, it was $300.
Right.
Nowadays, the financial cost of joining a black fraternity sorority is substantial, right? And we're
And what
talking
and
young
so let's stop before I go any further. What year did you
uh,
pledge again? What year did you come in?
1991.
You paid $350.
I paid $300.
$300. Okay. I'm following.
Yep.
Okay, now go ahead.
Okay. What do you say to those who argue that these costs that they now have in all of our organizations, all of the Divine Nine organizations, are prohibitive and exclude many talented young black men and women?
So there's three sides to that.
Mm-hmm.
One, prohibitive, and this goes back to that middle class growth that we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prohibitive is in one part relative, and I'll tell you this much. Let's say we make the fees $300 right now for every college student. There would still be college students that couldn't afford that because the rising cost of college is a more suppressive amount than the initiation fees, right? The second thing that we have to realize is that the federal government over the years has taken less and less financial access to universities, right? There was a time, Brother Abdullah, that when we were in college, we would get refunds from our Pell Grants and everything else
I
that we
remember those
got.
days. I remember
Yeah.
the refund
And
checks.
yeah, and those refund checks, if you wanted to pledge AKA or Delta Sigma Theta, you would use those refund checks. So you got to make sure that we're talking about it from a holistic perspective, right? The third thing I would say is, yes, it's expensive. However, if we keep up with inflation, it's really not that far off, right? I think that what we need to understand is that the economic access has declined to get into these organizations. So when I say it's too expensive, I say that's relative to who you are, right? Because like I gave you the example, I know young men that couldn't join a fraternity if it was $200, right?
Right.
So here's the solution. Here's the solution. Let's talk about the solution, right?
Yeah, I want to hear this. Is going to be good. I want to hear this one.
First and foremost, if I'm a young man going through a mentoring program of a fraternity, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's usually an alumni chapter or graduate chapter of some kind.
Right.
If I send you to a great university, let's call out some great university, Syracuse University, unbiased, right?
Of course, you say Syracuse.
In New
We
York.
got you. Right.
And he goes through the Alpha Gamma Lambda mentoring, right?
Okay.
Alpha Gamma Lambda should be pointing him to the Delta Zeta chapter, right?
Right.
And of course there needs to be a level of responsibility. If the fee is $1,200, you are responsible. The Alpha Gamma Lambda has a scholarship fund set aside for you to join the fraternity.
Okay.
As long as you have a 3.0 or above at the time that you seek membership, and we got $800 of that $1,200 for you, but you got to go find that $400, right?
I like that.
You have to be invested some kind of way, right?
That's right.
You just can't walk in and say, hey, right? The investment, and I'm not saying all of it's supposed to be difficult, but the investment, but that's part of seeking membership is the investment, right?
Yeah.
Second thing, be transparent, and I'm not talking about Alpha because we're very transparent with our fees, but be transparent with your fees up front.
Right.
Do you follow me?
Got you.
A lot, tell people, hey, this is how much it's going to cost you as this year in school to become a member of the organization. Thirdly, when you cross into an organization, and sometimes I will actually put a little bit of accountability on the college brothers at this, find out where the money is to help pay for your college career. All
Okay.
the fraternities and sororities have scholarships for their members,
Right.
but a lot of them either don't take the initiative or miss the communication. And I think that's why I say partially. I think sometimes it's the way that we as older men and women communicate, because we are the email generation, right?
Right.
Whereas
Right.
the
Right.
younger people today are not the email generation, right? So
Texters.
if there's a scholarship available, if there's just throwing out a number, if there's $100,000 worth of scholarships for Alpha's educationally at a general organization level, I'm not even talking at the chapter level, just general organization level, and it comes out, if we get 10 applications, we're lucky,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
Because brothers aren't necessarily knowing when they come out, and that's part of that, like I said, communication strategy,
Yeah.
building those bridges, making sure they understand. But part of that too is you have to also not make but help people understand that when you're joining a fraternity or sorority, it's an investment.
Yeah.
Now, how are you
Yeah.
going to get
Yeah.
that return on that investment, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
everything is $1 equals $2. Sometimes that $1 equals open access to jobs, brothers, we opened up the Alpha Phi Alpha Careers Center. So
Right.
brothers, we have over 80,000 jobs available for brothers to apply to today. Sometimes that's getting your mentor. Like this month, we opened up the Alpha Phi Alpha Brother to Brother mentoring program to make sure that we start aligning college brothers with a professional mentor that's an alumni brother that's done the work that you want to do. So because we know that those that have professional mentors generally make much more income than those that don't, right? So
Right.
if I'm seeking my PhD in education, I need Brother Abdullah as a mentor, helping me get through that process. Because when I make that extra income, it was because I had that mentor. It's partly all of those things put together. So what I would tell you is, one, we have to be more creative in the way that we provide access to funds. We have to be more reward based, and you have to seek the return on your investment. It's not just the amount of money that you're paying. Is it really worth the investment? That's not a question I can answer for you. Just
Right.
being honest
Right.
with you.
Right.
Each man and woman may make that decision on their own, right? But I tell people all the time, I can't pay Alpha back for everything that is given to me,
That's right. Okay.
right?
I got you.
So,
Yeah.
and that's just the truth, right?
Right.
I probably would have never met my wife if I was an Alpha, right? Not saying that the Lord would have not ordained it in a different way, but what I can tell you is that I would not. There are things in my life that would not be the same if it was not for Alpha. So, I could raise $10 million and give it to Alpha. It probably still wouldn't be enough,
I got you.
right?
Okay. Okay. That
So,
makes sense. All right. I just wanted to know that because, like I said, a lot of people have had that conversation. I've had that conversation.
mhm.
I actually had a conversation with somebody who was in a D9 sorority, and she told me something very interesting. She said that what they did was they allowed their college new initiates to put their stuff on a payment plan,
Mhm.
a rigid payment plan that they had. I guess I don't know, was it monthly, quarterly? I don't know how it worked,
So,
but they were able to do it that way because
so
of the
my
exorbitant costs.
right. So my question was the fee paid in full before they were initiated or after?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a
That's the
good
key
question,
component.
but
That's
I
the
just
key
wanted to
component.
know
Yeah.
because my dean of pledge, he came through in '88,
hmm
and when he came through it was $180.
hmm
When I came through it was $250. How much was it for you, Mike?
I think it was 300. It was. I felt like it was two something or
No, no,
300,
no, no.
somewhere around
You
there.
98, so I can tell you the price because I remember I'm 98. You paid like 450.
No, did I pay for it?
Yeah,
You know, it was a
yeah, you
long time
did.
ago.
Well, you understand, Mike were you a junior?
Yeah, and that was probably that was the junior price around then. Alumni was
Mm-hmm.
600. So junior was about 460, 470. So he was in that neighborhood.
Okay, well, listen, we'll take your word on it. It's been a
Okay,
long time,
that's
long time.
probably true.
All right,
I don't have receipts.
right, right. What you got, Mike?
Well, I wanted to kind of address. We talked about initiation and everything like that, but I wanted to address. I know that it was in the news lately about hazing and the concerns around hazing and D9. Like, what are the steps that Alpha is doing to like really address that, or even eliminate or deal with
So
that? And do you think that the intake process has become too soft in this whole
so
process?
so let me answer your second question first. I don't think it's the process that's become too soft. I think the issue is that we have allowed negative negative traumas in our experiences to translate into how we bring men in. What do I mean by that? We all suffer from generational traumas, right? And then we come into our organizations with these generational traumas, and then we try to pass those on through our processes, right? So first and foremost, we have to address the culture of hazing. Hazing is not a particular issue of one organization. It has historically been an American, not just an American, global issue, but really in America, it's been an issue from the early 1800s, right?
For NPC and NPHC, I understand.
And before anything,
And before
Phi
that,
Beta Kappa. Why did Phi Beta Kappa become an honor fraternity? Because of its hazing activity when it was first founded, right? So Phi Beta Kappa is the first fraternity, but even before Phi Beta Kappa, there was hazing of freshmen and sophomores at various colleges and universities, right? So when I talk about addressing the hazing problem, it's a cultural issue across America. So we first have to address it and open up and admit that this is a bigger problem than one organization. It is a cultural issue that we have to address. Second thing that we did was we entered into a partnership with Hazing Prevention, which is an organization that specializes in educating and promoting and demystifying the myths about hazing. We are going to develop a curriculum around that. Now, that's not the only thing that we're going to do. There are other things that I can't really speak on externally that are internal moving parts of the organization that we're trying to address the cultural components of hazing. It's not just saying, hey, you can sit down and take this course and you're certified in dealing with hazing. No, what we're saying is that this is one part of a bigger plan to address it. We need to be focused more on what are the key components of developing the best brother that we can develop, right? But that means that we also have to accept certain things. The way that a brother came in 65 is not the same way a brother came in 75, 85, 95, 2005, 2015, and 2025. We all have a different perspective about how we're supposed to come in. What we all have to agree upon is that no matter how you came in, it's not going to work today, right? It's not going to work today, right? Because the collegiate student is different. We need to protect them. We need to protect them from harm and danger. We need to be proactive in making sure that we're protecting their best interests, because no young man or woman should feel that their health and safety should be put at risk to join these organizations. And so therefore we have to work at our best to weed out those situations and those instigators of that, right? I'm not blaming I'm not blaming any one person in particular or people in particular. I'm saying that we have to root out the culture, focus on things that matter, and make sure that the process that we bring them through brings them to their next level of expectation in the community that they're in. Not necessarily saying that I always say, if you're joining an organization to become a man or a woman, then don't join that organization. If you're joining an organization to become a better man or a better woman, that should be what they're trying to make you be. I don't see any purpose in certain things that we see with hazing that makes you a better man or a better woman. We tell ourselves, because of our traumas that we're passing on, that it does matter. But at the end of the day, the measure of a man is not. Oh, I was about to go.
I know you.
I'm like this. Watch out now. Okay, now.
Let me step back. Let me step back. But the qualities of a man is not how much physical activity he is. It is based on his intellectual capacity to understand the situation that he's in. It's his ability to engage and understand that his community is bigger than he is. And especially for the black man, regardless of where you sit in this point in your life as a black man, the person that you need to defend other than your physical self is the black woman. And if you're not doing those things, regardless of where you fall in the spectrums of life, if your primary focus other than your own self-health is not protecting black women, then I don't understand how you can say you're about the community, right? So I'm not saying that we don't matter, because we do. We need to take care of ourselves.
I think the entire unit needs to be protected.
Right.
Man, woman, and child, definitely. I get what you're
Right.
going. I get what you.
Yeah.
I pick up what you're putting down.
Yep.
Yeah. Here's my
So,
question though, and I always like to say people's names. Um, the young man, and I would say the beautiful young brother, Caleb Wilson, who lost his life
mhm.
with that process with Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, allegedly.
Allegedly, please.
I say
Yes.
allegedly. Um, I think that I think it turned the tide for a lot of us.
Hmm.
We always knew what it was. We knew what existed, and we knew the potential fallouts. But for some reason, this hit a lot of us differently. I get maybe it was the media attention, or maybe it was, it would. I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone to say anything negative about him. I mean, even on paper,
Hmm.
this young man was amazing, and to now know that he's no longer with us, his family has to deal with that, the campus has to deal with it, and ultimately, that organization, uh, based upon the allegations, may bear the brunt of something extreme down the line. My question is, what level of accountability does that place upon all of us as D9 organizations looking at that situation, and how should we find ourselves or feel that as members, that for me, I'm very open and honest that I was pledged underground for my entire process, and I pledged other people underground for their entire process. But I'm in a space now where I understand that the brothers that were made like me, many of us aren't even financial. And
Hmm.
then you got the brothers who weren't made like me, they're running chapters, you know. So I can see the disparity between what we thought was important between compared to what actually is. But what level of accountability do you think we have as members on campus or in a city, metropolis, or in a rural area
So,
when it comes to hazing and pledging?
so let's start. Let's start with the true answer. None of these organizations are hazing organizations. We are all non-hazing organizations.
Okay.
Is we don't believe in hazing. Hazing is not an effective way to bring brothers in. It puts us all at risk,
Hmm.
right? And and it's and unfortunately, Caleb Wilson lost his life allegedly from hazing. But what I can tell you is that anytime you partake in any illegal hazing activity, it's only a matter of time before someone else, right? And so I said I want to make sure that we're all clear. Just because you got through it doesn't escape you from accountability.
Right. I agree.
So that's our level of accountability. Those of us, and I'll just say us as a granular basket, not necessarily picking out any individual. Those
Mm.
of us that participate in these things should not, just because you got through it doesn't make you any less accountable.
Right.
We have to be the voices of change in our society, right?
Okay.
We
Okay.
have to. That's what accountability looks like. We have to make sure from the leadership, that includes me at the top, all the way to the college brother that's running the chapter by himself. We all are accountable to each other. I
Okay.
can't talk out of the two sides of my mouth anymore or at any time. I can't say, Brother Abdullah,
Mm.
we don't make brothers like we used to. By that statement, I'm disenfranchising a group of brothers. And therefore, I'm giving them license to go try to seek that.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
I got you.
Right?
That makes sense. That makes sense. I got you.
So it's in the way that we talk about each other, right? It's in the way that let me tell you something. You can sit here, the three of us can sit here and talk about what the perfect alpha looks like.
Mm.
And we'd all have three different opinions because we'd circle around it for hours. But you know a good brother when you see him.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell a good brother, but you know him when you see him. Right?
Yeah.
And
I agree.
and so a lot of times what we do is we sit here and we're like, oh, I really I really co-sign this guy. I really co-sign this guy. Let's go back to something that you talked about, the rising cost of fees, right? Let me ask you a simple question. If you had to pay the fees now for somebody you wanted to bring into the fraternity, would you do it? Would you pay their fees?
Now,
Now,
at
so
today's cost.
if someone came to you and said, Dr. Abdullah,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be an alpha
Yeah.
at Morgan State University. I'm not picking on Beta Alpha, but I'm just saying,
Right.
Morgan State University. And the rules of the fraternity said, in order for Abdullah to sponsor him, he has to pay his membership fees. I think that you would take a little more time,
Yeah.
a little more thought, a little more understanding about who you're bringing in,
Definitely. Definitely.
right? Because now you're really investing in somebody,
Right.
right? And so what I would challenge everybody to do, regardless of your organization, is stop thinking that the process makes a good brother. What makes a good brother or sister or soror is the investment of time that you put in to letting them understand that no organization is perfect because we're all imperfect people.
Yeah.
But we
Well, I tell
strive
you,
to
I agree. I agree. I
we
tell you, I met a
strive to be
brother.
better.
My first national convention, I met a brother who pledged in 51. And I never forget, it was the most beautiful conversation because he told us, we was just sitting there talking to him. He said, yeah, when we pledged, it was a year-long process. And, you know, from our 1991 mentality, we were like, we couldn't have did this for a whole year. And he explained to us, no, it wasn't like you're thinking. That stuff you guys are doing, we didn't do that. He
Right.
said, I was spending time with my line brothers' families. I was, you know, eating dinner at their homes and learning about their siblings. And he said, I knew their grandparents and learning the big brothers. We were going to their homes, meeting their families and, you know, just exchanging ideas. And it was a long process only because we were told you're going to be with these brothers for at least 3 years of your life, working alongside them. It's extremely important that you know them. He said, I probably can count on one hand how many times I was physically hazed
Mm-hmm.
in that entire year, and it was nothing to write home about. You know, it was just more ritualistic than anything. And it got me to thinking, and I've always held that conversation in the back of my head, and I will say this on camera, that I respect where we are now because I'm seeing good brothers come into the organization that did not come in the way I came in. So it kind of dispels the myth that the only way you can have a good brother is to come in the way we came in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would like to say that because I know that there are a lot of good brothers that are intimidated with the idea of, you know, I want to become a member, but they not pledging like such such. I know who pledged, and then they may just walk away from the process. And I'm saying that you're still missing out, and we're missing out on good brothers. So I want to say I thank you for that, brother Mettelus. Mike, you going to close us out?
Yeah, I am. I want to ask Brother Metellus if you could leave one message for the young black men who are, you know, questioning the value of not just Alpha Phi Alpha, but all the black Greek life today. What would that message be?
Well, my message is simple. I hate to say it, like, we need each other. We need each other now more than ever. And if that doesn't mean that you have membership in Alpha Phi Alpha, that's fine. But what I'm looking for in terms of, I need more real brothers. And if you're looking for, and it's not even just about the community service. Why do we do community service? Yes, because we have a moral obligation to serve our communities, but it's also how we build brotherhood together. It's not about friendships. It's about the understanding that we are greater together than we are individually. Moses can't move the mountain without God, right? But the people of Israel, in their faith, were able to do great things together. We want to be able to do great things together. And brother, whoever you are that's listening to this message right now, know that Brother Lucian Metellus, 37th General President of the fraternity, believes that your purpose is greater when you have brothers that are like-minded doing it with you. When we're separated by petty things, that slows our growth. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated develops leaders, promotes brotherhood. academic excellence while providing service and advocacy for our communities. That's the mission statement. If you truly believe that we can change the ways of the world, not only would I recommend that you look at each and every fraternity, but I'd actually say look at it with a critical eye. Look at it, challenge it, pressure it. Because fraternities were not created to be elitist. And I'll say that publicly. They weren't created to be elitist. What they were created to do was take those of us of like-minded vision and move our people forward. So if you're about that, here we are. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. Because what did I say earlier? I've always believed this. Alpha Phi Alpha is a perfect organization with imperfect people.
Imperfect people. Okay.
Our ideals are great, but our people are imperfect, myself included. What I'm going to tell you is it's the greatest brotherhood in the world. Last thing I'll say. It's the greatest brotherhood in the world. Nothing like it. But guess what? Guess what? Brother Michael, Brother Abdullah, Brother Mettelus, we're all going to disappoint you at one time or another.
You can bank on that.
Yeah.
You can break on that.
But what I'm going to tell you is that disappointment is how you'll become a better brother and how we'll become brothers when you hold us accountable.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
Brother Mettelus, I'd like to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. We know between the family, work, and the fraternity, I'm surprised you were able to give us this amount of time, but I truly appreciate it. I know the Grit Network, we're a new channel, but we are bringing on the top of the line individuals to give their commentary, give their positions on things that matter to the community. Michael Burt, please take us out.
Hey, again, thank you, Brother Mettelus. This is the Grit. We appreciate your being here and really sharing your vision and just talking to people. And
all right.
It matters. It really matters. And so for all you listeners and watchers, you know what to do. Make some comments in the comment section below and just stay tuned in. Take care.